Yeah, what a busy week it was last week. A lot of stuff happened. We had the MPC meeting last week, and to the surprise of everyone, the central bank shocked all of us and raised rates contrary to expectation, right? So interest rate went up by 50 basis points, 0.5%, and that kind of shocked everybody. Of course, we will try as much as possible to break down what that means for the stock market. And of course, I have a guest here who's going to help with that. We're going to do the intro in a bit. Of course, we're going to discuss a few other things. Flour mills was in the news last week, so we'll talk about flour mills. Boa Foods was also in the news, not forgetting Fitson as well in the news last week. Before I introduce the guest, let me just quickly run through last week's wrap, okay? So the stock market closed the week yet again on a positive note. That's 3 consecutive weeks of positive close, up 0.21%. And so we're getting into, in fact, looks like the month of September might be closing on a bullish note, even though it's unlikely to hit the 100,000 mark for the ASI. But it did gain last week yet again. 45 equities recorded price gains compared to 41 a week earlier, where we saw 33 stocks decline last week. Of course, market activity saw a significant boost with volumes up 21% to 2.57 billion shares compared to 2.1 billion. I mean, if you're wondering what that means, I mean, the more trading activity you have on the stock market, especially when prices are going up, then it means that you've got a lot of momentum behind stocks. And when you have volumes up, it means investors or stockbrokers are trading. It means you and I are buying stocks, probably selling. So enough trading activity last week. And of course, NGX Premium Index also rose 0.59% during the week, which is the index for the big boys, the top 6-7 stocks in the market. That they also recorded positive and growth. Of course, the NGX 30 and main board indexes also rose 0.4 and 0.5%, 0.59% respectively. The NGX oil and gas index outperformed, gaining 3.28%, driven by 10% increase in Seplat. Seplat once again hit a new milestone. That stock has gained more than any other stock in the oil and gas sector, well, bar Orlando. This year so far. So who were the top gainers last week? Well, a lot of incredible top gainers. Number one for us was Ella Lakes. Ella Lakes gained 59% last week. I'm sure you're wondering, which one is Ella Lakes again? Ella Lakes is an agro company. They listed on the exchange for a bit. Sometimes they just pop up and then it looks as if there's something happening and then they disappear off the news, of the radar. But they were back last week and gained 59% last week alone. Of course, Regency Insurance was next. They gained 53%. And then Flour Mills, with the big news that we're going to talk about later today, gained 22.89%. Next up was Sterling Holdings. Sterling is up 22%. Sterling has been doing pretty well this month. Wonder what is behind those moves. And Wema Bank also up 17% last week. And then ABC, which is a bus transport company, up 16% last week. PZ Cussons also gained 19.5% last week. Deep Capital, 12%. Livestock Feeds, 12%. And Jais Bank rounds up the top 10 gainers with 11%. So which of the stocks do you have in your portfolio that did gain? If you did have any of these stocks, then you probably did well because they all did double digits in just 1 week alone. So that's a lot of money made for some people. Yeah, so if you have gainers, you also have losers. And of course, we had some losers last week. Caverton, which had always been among the top gainers, dropped massively last week, 27% loss last week. Multiverse also dropped, and Okomo Oil, 19% and 13% respectively. Among the notable losers as well was Mega Paints. Mega Paints down 9.8%. Northern Nigerian Flour Mills also down 9%. And there's a company called Cadillac Nigerian PLC. Have you heard of that company before? Cadillac Nigerian PLC. They lost 9.39% last week. And of course, International Breweries also down 8.8%. And Owando also down 8.85% as it continues to pare down some of the gains that it made in October and earlier in September. So that is the market wrap for the week. So we're going to go right straight into the main show. I have here with me one of my favorite guests. He comes here once in a while. So I had to drag him into the studio today. We have today on the show the Duke of Shomolu, Mr. Edgar.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
How are you, sir?
Someone asked me a question about this NPC thing.
Yes, I want to put you on the spot. I know you're into creative these days, but you're still first and foremost a markets person. That you can't leave your bread and butter. That's where you basically carved out a niche for yourself. Please tell us, what do you think about the MPC? So Cardoso shocked everyone last week, or him and his members. Unanimous votes, 0.5%. You've been in this market for years. I mean, you've traded stocks, different, investment assets. What does it mean when the central bank decides to just raise rates? I mean, we've seen rates are now like 27.75%. 27.25%.
Yeah.
And according to him, he says it's still lower than inflation, so it's negative real return.
No, but it's very strange why he's using that as an excuse to do that, because everybody's screaming inflation. It's crazy. Food inflation is about 40%. Do you understand? So if you're not start raising rates and benchmarking it against trying to say that because inflation is X, you are trying to go to that margin, then something was wrong somewhere. But I think it's a careful balancing act that CBN is not really taking into consideration when they do some of these things. So I think they will just want to usually when they do things for them to attempt to mop up liquidity you get in the space. But then again, that now goes to, I don't think they really look at how that affects cost of funds for business owners, because the banks will also do the same on this other side. So the whole thing is just wonky, it's just dislocated because.
But what can he do? What option does he have? I mean, central bank, the only thing they can do is monetary policy, which is raise or drop rates. Should it be dropping rates? Foreign investors are not going to bring their money in. When foreign investors bring their money in, that helps stabilize the exchange rate and then helps inflation anyway.
No, but with these rates, do you get these rates that is going up? So it's also impacting
the real sector, the capital market.
The capital market and foreign FDIs are coming in there, so you can see that the ASI is going up. You get inflation is also going up, and then the real sector is going
taking
down.
the heat.
Everything's just so dislocated. I don't understand. Even though I'm not tired, I look again. I'm not tired. So the banks who are supposed to be lending, if you look at their weighted their portfolio, whatever, you see that they're not really lending to the real sector. They're declaring trillions. They're declaring trillions.
And then to cap it off, the central bank also said they're going to raise CRR. That's the amount of money they take away from banks by 5% to 50%. So for every deposit bank has, half of it is kept by the CBN.
I think they should just go straight for those magical profits and leave
Really?
This CRR thing. It's only declaring 1 trillion.
What's wrong with that?
There's nothing wrong with it. Let's look for a way to tax it.
Why should we tax all of it?
Because.
So you support this windfall tax thing?
Yes, by far. In fact, they should even do more self because the capacity transition in the real sector is dropping. Do you get me now? Businesses are collapsing. Do you get? So where are the banks getting these trillions?
I see.
Do you get me now? So rather than doing all these funny CRR things, they just go straight for that and push those funds into the real sector. Do you get me now? By I don't know how they're going to do it. So if a bank is declaring 3 trillion, how many trillion they declare now at the end of the quarter?
Yeah.
What business have they done when the economy has not grown significantly? Do you get me now? So what that means is that somebody's trading something and then it must be taxed heavily so that we can have a restructuring. Do you get me now? Of funding away from those who trade funds to those who produce. Because that's the only way inflation can come down. That's the only way FDIs can come. What we have now is FPIs.
Yeah.
You get FPIs are hot money that don't stay. They're like prostitutes. They don't stay. So what we need is FDI. So because that's why I say that there's a disconnect. The ASI is lumping. Some market is making so much money. Do you get me now for traders? And then the real sector is suffering.
All right. Interesting take there from Joe Edgar. But of course, you all know when interest rate goes up, that could have different effects for the stock market. I mean, companies that borrow a lot could suffer because interest rate is going to go up. Why banks typically are favored when there's high interest rates. And of course, it also might be a problem because if treasury bills rate and all that go up, then a lot of people cycle money out of the stock market and go into fixed income investment.
But all of these, the real sector suffers.
I know,
That's
I
our
know,
problem.
I know. Yeah, I mean, that's what they say. But to be honest, I don't really see much that the central bank can do. We go on quickly to the next story here. Flour Mills said that they own most of Flour Mills shares. They own about 63% of Flour Mills, 60.95%. To be specific, they've said they want to buy out minority shareholders so that, I mean, when they want to buy out minority shareholders, kind of sounds like they're looking to delist, and they feel like, yeah, it's part of a strategic plan to expand beyond Nigeria into Africa and blah, blah, blah. Joe, why are these guys delisting? I mean, is it that this? I thought that the stock market was doing much better now on that team and all that stuff. So what's good?
Can I play the fifth of this? Because my friends, when corporate governance, you get, is not as tight as it should be. You get when things are being played, you get with pricing. Do you understand? So real investors would get kind of weary. Do you understand? But I don't think this is the blame sits on the stock exchange. I think the blame sits on the macroeconomic environment, the regulatory environment, the harsh economic realities that most of the manufacturers face. Do you understand?
Yeah.
So for every #1 you make, you get, before the auditors will come out, that money had lost 20% of its valuation. So a foreign investor is asking himself, with all of the wahala that comes with doing business in Nigeria, what exactly am I taking vis-a-vis if I took this same amount of money and went
and invested somewhere else,
Kenya or Rwanda or somewhere? So I don't think it has anything to do with stock exchange like that. It's just one of those exit strategies that we're seeing. But something is happening right now, and so we're seeing Asians come in, we're seeing Lebanese come in, people who understand this environment. Do you understand?
So is it that they understand the environment more than we understand it, or what? That's what I really don't get. Because we were leaving and they're coming. So who understands? I mean, Nigerians that are jackpotting now.
Nigerians are jackpotting, but we don't get sense now. What do you say that one?
Come on.
Talk about serious business people now. So they are coming in now because the environment is a little bit loose. Do you understand? So they understand the below the table type of way that we do things. So they are now replacing, these other entities, which, where we are right now, we don't have a choice. It's just for us to make the best use of that opportunity.
So tell me something. When a company like Flour Mills is delisting, or looking at delisting, because if they're buying up minority shareholders, they're delisting. What, I mean, if you're a shareholder of Flour Mills, what should you be asking for? Because I mean, some people are saying perhaps the 70 naira price that you're offering is too small. Is there a way that you can ask for more, or I mean, how do you determine what the exit price should be?
Yeah, so the question is that who determines it?
I mean, I guess, isn't it between the company, the Excelsior who's trying to buy them out?
Buy has more powers. Buy has more financial power, so it determines your pricing. Do you get me now? You just had minority shareholder who wants to buy out minority shares. He already has control. Do you get? So what minority shareholder should do now is to buy more of those shares. I would buy more for that shares at this period.
Well, that's probably why Flour Mills was one of the top gainers last week. So quickly, before we get into the main reason why you're here, Fitzin announced a major deal last week as well. They said they were going to build a $100 million pharmaceutical plant in partnership with, I mean, you did mention, I think it's a Chinese company. FDI into Nigeria, what's your thought? It's a good thing?
Yes, it's a good thing. Obviously, it's a good thing because it will increase capacity utilization, it will impact infrastructure, it will increase employment, and then it will also assist in bringing down the cost of goods. Especially like in this case now. Do you understand? So it's a good thing. I think government should do.
What about for shareholders of Fitzin? It's a good deal for them. If you could buy Fitzin shares, would you buy it now with this kind of announcement?
I would have what they call a tipping look into Fitzin shares if I was not already in it. What I mean tipping is that these things will come with some corporate governance issues. It will come with reporting issues. It will come with decision-taking issues when you are dealing with those kinds of foreign investors who really do not have so much interest in those things. And then in the long term, you begin to see now that the off-site shareholder may not get maximum benefits. You get, because reporting is funny. So I will do that tiptoeing kind of investment. So I will put my money there, but
Well, you could be
I
careful.
go take careful.
All right, we're going to take a break in a bit. But before that, let's just quickly get on another story here. Boa Food as well. They also penned a capacity expansion deal with an Italian company this time. They want to increase capacity for their pasta division from 400,000 tons to 900,000 tons. So it kind of looks like some companies are making serious investments here in Nigeria, which is quite a good thing. All right, so we're going to go in the break, for a short break, and we'll be back in a bit, and we're going to talk about sexual harassment in the workplace and what it means for Nigerians. Welcome back, everyone. This is Follow the Money, brought to you by Nairametrics in partnership with UBA. Yep, we do this every Monday, 8 to 8:30. If you missed a part of this show, don't worry. You can always listen to it again. We have a podcast recording of the show that will be up later today, as well as previous versions of the show. We have been discussing the markets in general today with Joseph Edgar. If you don't know him, he's the Duke of Shomolu. We're having an in studio today, and we've talked about a number of, we've talked about MPC, we've talked about some stocks. But I want to segue a little bit into something that's also important. I mean, we talked about corporate governance earlier, ethics in the workplace, and how people in charge of organizations can ensure that their employees come to those organizations and work without fear. And so one of the things that has been top burner these days is sexual harassment in the workplace. And you want to have a master class on sexual harassment in the workplace. So, I mean, typically things like this are not, in our purview, but I kind of think that it's for the social good of it, interesting to just listen to why this interests you, and I also want you to connect to what it means for business in general, especially those that are quoted companies. But let's start with sexual harassment in workplace. What are you trying to do with that?
So let me take you on. It must interest you.
Mm-hmm.
It must interest you, because you cannot have a vibrant economy without vibrant businesses and very vibrant institutions. So when business owners do their threat analysis, they don't think about sex. They think about things we talked about here, regulatory problems, harsh economic environment, all of that. They don't think about sex. And then when it happens, it blindsides them. Do you understand? Let me tell you how sex works in corporate institutions. It's like a virus. You don't see it. You don't feel it. It just starts taking you. It takes human capital, destroys hierarchy, destroys discipline. Do you get me now? Destroys decision-taking capacity. And before you realize it, good hands start jumping out. Before you realize it, structures are weakened. Before you realize it, 26% of Nigerian businesses will die this year from sexual harassment. Do you get me now? And that's why, so sexual harassment, sexual issues, let me just say sexual relations, because there are positives and there are negatives. There are positives in that they are family-owned businesses. They're having sex, but they're running their businesses. You get me now? People are also setting up businesses for their girlfriends, and they are doing very well. Do you understand? Okay, you can see businesses like logistics, where you see young girls having a fleet of delivery bikes. Do you get? If you go back there, there's some emotional relationship there. So those are the positives, but the negatives far outweigh the positives.
Yeah.
Do you get me now? By far. You get, and so that's why we're trying to have this masterclass, because I've come to the realization that these negatives affect institutions in four.
So who's this masterclass for? Why do you need a masterclass to understand this?
That's what I'm trying to tell you. So because people don't attune to it, business owners don't look at it as a serious threat. Meanwhile, it is now becoming a more serious threat to businesses than we have thought about in the last 5, 10, 15 years. So it can affect you legally. So you're seeing businesses being taken to court because they've not been able to protect their staff.
Locally here in Nigeria, because I mean abroad, I know that it's a big deal, but here in Nigeria,
I know of a big school that lost its rhythm because one of the students while there was raped.
So that's a school. So we're talking about corporate institutions now. Does it happen?
Nigeria is shaking right now. There's a lady now who's about taking them to cleaners. Nigeria is shaking. You get the other businesses that are in various levels of court processes because of things like this. It also affects your brand reputation. Very key. There's a huge PFA company today that we all know about. If you Google it today, what you see first is one of that. So you can imagine a company that spends millions on their brand reputation, and then something like this just comes and takes it out. Do you get me now? Then it also affects them The human capital I mentioned earlier on, you get that was even the worst of it all. Do you understand? It affects human capital terribly, and then at the end of the day, now affects the structures of the company. That's why I have this masterclass.
But does it affect share price of companies though?
Eventually, it will. Eventually, it will because it affects productivity. And from when it affects productivity, it affects bottom line. Affects bottom line is share price. Eventually, when you start losing all your good hands, what happens?
So who's going to be in this masterclass, basically?
So what we've done now is that we've brought sector experts. So a lot of people.
So who is an expert here, please? Is it because I read some of your stuff and I'm seeing judges and are they experts in this matter?
Yes.
How is a judge an expert in this matter?
So at the legal side of it, we have said that affects you legally. So the judge is coming, do you get me, to give us real life case studies of cases that she has heard of how this thing has affected that company. Do you get me now? So if, for example, this thing takes out the MD or takes out the founder or takes out the visionary, the company's gone. So, for example, Ugodre Productions now, we've done $3 billion in sponsorship revenues in the last 4-5 years. You get it? So I'm the founder and visionary. If I'm enmeshed in sexual harassment, you get it? Then the company's gone. We've employed 5,000 test men in the last 4 years. The company's gone. So the judge is coming to talk about that. And then we have the legal guy, Olumide Ajo-san. You get, we also come and talk about the legal implications you get of the sexual harassment case, you get on the business. You get, and then we now have major business owners. Otuba Bimbo Ashuru, who is the chairman of Odua Investment, one of Nigeria's largest indigenous conglomerates, also coming to have that conversation. And then, very importantly, we are also having Tokunbo George Taylor, who is also going to talk about the crisis management in terms of protecting brands. So
what about the psychologists themselves, the people who really understand, who understand all these things? And
psychologists come there to also explain these things for business owners. You get, so it's a robust engagement.
All right. Interesting. You've heard Joseph Edgar, guys. Abroad sexual harassment have basically brought down a lot of companies or have dented images of a lot of companies and often affects their share price. Haven't seen that happen in Nigeria yet. But I hope it doesn't get there, because if it gets there, it means your masterclass hasn't worked. So the whole idea of your masterclass is to prevent things like this from happening. So when is this taking place again?
October 25th.
Okay. All right. You heard that, guys. This is one of the things that we do at Nairametrics. So it's not just all about stocks. We also try as much as possible to try and bring on other issues that affect bottom line and business at the end of the day. Before I go, just want to talk a little bit about Airtel. Airtel was also in the news last week, by the way. Airtel said that he was looking at deploying alternative power solutions to his base stations across the country. This is not the first time I'm hearing this from telcos, but Airtel is saying that they want to leverage on solar power as well as renewables to power its 15,000 base stations, which currently consumes 22 million liters of diesel every month. Can you imagine that? 22 million liters of diesel every month. That's what it takes to run Airtel base stations. And so if you sort of expand that to MTN and Globalcom and the other telcos, you get an idea of how much we consume in terms of diesel power in this country, and of course, what that means for climate change. So Airtel wants to go green. Interesting to see what that means for the company's bottom line at the end of the day. That's what I'm particularly interested in. I believe that this is a positive development for Airtel. All right, so I'm just going to wrap with the monetary policy decision of the MPC and what it essentially means, for us investors. So, if you're the central bank, what would you do? You have inflation running; it's at 30-something%. You have food inflation close to 40%, even though we did see a little bit of dip in August. But here's the problem: we now have fuel price essentially going up from about 600 to over 900 naira per liter. That obviously has a direct impact on inflation because it's going to affect the cost of goods and services, especially transport. And when that happens, you expect inflation to likely go up. So I do expect inflation to go up in October when the NBS releases the result in November. You're going to be hearing that in November. So I expect higher inflation for September and even October. And so it looks like the central bank already knows that we are in for some headwinds. So in preparation for that, they've decided to increase rates, by 50 basis points. And then, of course, they've also increased CRR, to 50%. So that means for every deposit that you put in a bank, half of that money is kept with the CBN. and banks can only play with the remaining half of it. That, of course, is a huge cost to banks, and so expect your interest rates on your loans to go up, right? And the CBN is doing this because it believes money supply is still too high. Money supply is over 100 trillion. And when there's a lot of money in circulation, when there's a lot of money in the economy, that adds to inflationary pressures. So that's why the CBN is doing it. It's going to have impact on those who borrow. Your interest rates are likely going to go up. And for those who have a lot of money to deposit, expect higher interest rate on your deposit. And if you're not getting that, negotiate with your bank or your financial service provider for a higher interest rate. So that is just in a nutshell the impact. If you want to hear more, just check on my podcast Money Brief, which I'll be doing later today on Nairametrics on YouTube, on our YouTube channel, and you get this. So this has been Follow the Money, brought to you by Nairametrics in partnership with UBA. We do this every Monday, 8 to 8:30. Thank you so much for listening. Thanks to Joseph Edgar for being on the show, discussing sexual harassment in the workplace. Of course, do have a profitable week ahead. And happy Independence Day, Nigeria, by the way. Bye-bye, everyone.